Hey everyone! Did you know that you can create amazing dyes with something as simple as onion skins? It's a fun and eco-friendly way to dye fabrics without those nasty chemicals. So let's dive into the natural dyeing journey together, shall we? In this video we're going to be dyeing with onion skins. As I collected them, I added them to a little paper bag in my kitchen. Next, I also collected together any old fabrics that I could find, some kimono silk in the bolt still. I also had some old cotton from under kimono. I found some little swatches of cotton as well, and also an old bedsheet from my kids. You need quite a bit of equipment and some tools for natural dyeing, but it's nothing really special. You need a scale to measure your fabric, you need some jam jars, and 2 pots, one for mordanting, one for making your dye, as well as something to strain your dye materials and fabric. I'd also recommend some stainless steel trays, some tongs to pull out the fabric, rubber gloves to protect your hands from the dye and the heat, a measuring spoon, and something to stir your fabric with. You'll also need access to some kind of burner, as well as you need a lot of water for this process, so access to a sink. For the scouring process, you're going to need some washing detergent, as well as soda ash to remove all the grime from your fibres. Soda ash is sodium carbonate, Na2CO3H2O, or tansan natrium in Japanese. You'll also need some dish soap to finish the process of scouring. For mordanting your fabrics, you're going to need some alum, which in Japanese is myoban, and its chemical name is potassium aluminium sulfate. I'm working in my studio kitchen, so I'm not too precious about it, but if you are working in your kitchen at home, you might want to consider covering the surfaces because the dyes do stain, as you can see here. I gathered as much of the equipment as I could from what we had at home, but I also went to this cook shop in Shimokitazawa that had second-hand catering equipment, and I managed to pick up some stainless steel trays, some tongs, and some bits and pieces for the dyeing process. But look at this copper pot. This is really special. I also managed to pick up a pot and some steamers and strainers from Book Off Super Bazaar for very cheap. First of all, I'm going to scour the fabrics that I've collected. I've weighed them while they're dry, and then we're going to scour them, which is a process to get everything removed from the fabrics. I'm using vintage ones, so I need to make sure that all the dirt, the grime, I'm mainly using cotton, but I'm also throwing in a little bit of silk just to see what happens. I'm learning as well, so I don't know whether it's going to work, but let's just scour the whole lot of material that I have. I'm scouring more than I need because I will be doing more projects with different materials coming up in future videos. So add some water to your pot and bring it to the boil. Then add a little bit of detergent. I eyeball this, so I did about 1 scoop, which is about a tablespoon. Add it to the pot and then add your soda ash, which will get all the grime and dirt off your fibres. Give it a little stir and wait for it to come to the boil fully. Now it's time to add your fibres so that you can give them a good scour, a good clean. Remove all the grime. give the mixture a little stir to make sure that the scouring process goes through all the layers of the fabrics and the different fibres, and then leave it on a low simmer for around 30 minutes to an hour to make sure it's completely clean. Stir the pot occasionally, making sure that all the grime is fully removed from all your fibres. If you can't work outside, it's a really good idea to have a fan on and a window open if you can, because you don't want to be breathing in the fumes of all these chemicals. When the scouring process is complete, you'll see that the water is really scummy and quite disgusting. So we need to strain this off, give it a good rinse, and move on to the next process. The final step in my process is using dish soap to wash the fabrics through again one more time. Just very briefly wash it through. Make sure you rinse all the soap off before moving on to the Mordanting process. Now it's time for the Mordanting process. This is where you will add some alum to a pot of hot water. So we're going to measure it first, 10 to 15% of the weight of the fabric that you measured at the beginning. So I'm going to add that into the jar here, and I'm going to add some warm water from the pot, and I'm going to dissolve it in there and add it to the pot. It's a good idea at this point to wear a mask because alum is an irritant, and if you can't work outside, make sure you've got a well ventilated space. The Mordanting process is really important because this is what's going to help your dye really stick to the fibres of your fabric. So make sure when you're putting it in the alum mixture that you unfold all the fabric. I'm doing it straight from wet, so going straight in the pot and bringing it to the boil and then lowering it to a simmer for around an hour and then leaving it overnight to sit in the pot. Now we've prepared our fabrics for dyeing. The next stage is to make the dye bath. This is the exciting bit. So bring some water to the boil in the pot yet again, and we're going to add the onion skins and make a beautiful honey-coloured dye. Once you've added all the onion skins that you've collected, then give them a little dunk in the water. Make sure that they're all submerged. Give them a good stir and put the lid on and leave it for about 1 hour simmering on the hob. After about 10 minutes of boiling, you can see it's already yellow. It's not dark enough by any means, so I carried on simmering away and giving it a little agitate with my tongs. After about 30 minutes I tried it again, because again I couldn't resist. It was getting darker, but it was nowhere near the colour that I wanted. So I decided that I was going to leave it to steep overnight. This is Mordanting. It's going to be in the pot overnight, and we'll come back to it tomorrow. It's day 2 and it's time to get the mordanted fabric out, give it a rinse, and also to have a look and see how our dye bath's going. The dye bath has been sitting for 24 hours almost, and it's time to strain all the onion skins out, because I don't want to have them in there when I'm doing dyeing, because that will give a very, very uneven look. But here's the colour after 24 hours. It's absolutely luscious. Bring the onion skin dye to your hob and set it on for boiling, and then lower it to a simmer before you add your fabrics. For an even dye, unfoil your fabrics and dip them in. You can see how quickly the dye works. After a few minutes you'll see a change in the fabrics. It's up to you at this point how long you want to leave it in, and depending on the colour that you want. You can already see after about 2 minutes the gorgeous colours. I simmered my fabrics for about 45 minutes and then decided that that was the colour that I wanted. Each fabric had got a different colour anyway, and I removed it from the dye bath. Now I'm going to try to dye some quite low quality postcards, which are made of sort of a watercolour paper, but let's just see what happens. Who knows? I've got a tray here ready. Just to see what happens. Straight into the tray to dry. Let's see again. I think Mordanting has a massive effect on the fabric, so I can see the difference in the paper. I'm going to try something a little bit different. I don't like waste, so I have some onion, the rest of the onion skins, and I'm wondering, this is what happened to I'm wondering if I put some of them on top, if there might be some magic. And then I'm going to leave it over the weekend and just see what happens. I mean, I need to throw these in the bin, these onion skins in the bin anyway now, because they've had it. But let's just see what happens, shall we? So the pot's been boiling for around 30 minutes and it's getting a little heated, so I'm going to turn it off, and I might let it steep for a little while. But I actually think I'm looking and peeping at some of these colours and they look quite divine. So I'm going to have a look. Now they will dry quite a lot lighter than this, so but I can see already this is the silk has really taken on the onion skin colour. This is some cotton, but it's going to be quite a lot lighter than that, so I'm thinking maybe to leave it to soak for another half an hour. This is the sashiko thread, which is cotton. Also seems to have worked quite well. This was a kimono string. I wasn't even sure if this was silk, but it looks like it may be cotton. It's taken the dye or whatever, but I think if it washes out then it's a synthetic. What else do we have? We had that cotton that had printing on somewhere. I'm trying to search for it at the bottom. That's fine, that's it. This was the under kimono. Oh, there it is. So this was the cotton that had a print on it. It looks like it might be cotton mix, not real cotton, so most happy I am is with this silk. It's absolutely luscious. Okay, so I'm going to leave it for another half an hour. See what happens. Nevertheless, it's very exciting. So it's time to rinse the dyed fabric now. This is the moment of truth. Let's see what happens. Put my gloves on first. As you can see how quickly a new pair of gloves can get dyed. It's very quick. It's already yellow. I don't want my hands to be yellow because that would look like I'm sick. So this is going to be interesting because I was a bit unsure of some of the materials that I was using. But this is the colour that I have. This is just a bowl that I use for art, so it's I don't care if it gets a bit dirty. Please don't use your food bowls. So these are the colours. I'm feeling that some of them are going to rinse out completely when I start rinsing, but let's see. Ooh. I'm hoping some of it's going to be colour fast, but of course there's some dye coming off because they've just been soaked in dye, but not as much as I thought would come off actually. So I'm doing it very gently so I don't wreck the fibres. Some people think that you should just take it out, give it a wring and then hang it up to let the dye set a little bit more, but I am impatient, so I'm going straight for the rinsing process. This colour is incredible. Wow. That's silk. So I'm going to then squeeze, and then I'm going to go for more rinse. So not a lot of dye came off, which is great. colours made, the onion skins made from different fibres. There are more dye projects coming up in this series, so if you're into it, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you know when the new projects arrive. See you soon!